Hi, this is Robert Mays from The Athletic. This time of year always gets busy, but that's when having Peloton in my life really makes a difference. The new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ, helps me fit in great workouts no matter what's on my schedule. It's Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move. Peloton IQ plans your workouts, tracks your progress, and corrects your form so you can train smarter and make the most of your time. Let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Welcome along to this new manager special of Mutchy Denno podcast with me, Johnny Phillips. Rob Edwards has now been appointed. I'm going to take a deep dive into what that could mean for Wolves going forward. Before we get going, just a few little bits of admin. We've got a live show coming up at the Cleveland Arms on the 4th of December. We'll chat more about that later on in the podcast, but it'd be great to have as many as you there as possible. And we are still looking for a title sponsor. We're delighted to be on board with Sports Social Network, but we're really keen to get a local title sponsor come and join us and come on board to help us move the podcast forward. Right, without further ado, let's say hello to Andy and Robbie. How are you guys?
Yep, all good, Johnny, thanks.
All good, Johnny.
Really exciting times in this international break for Wolves. They seem to have begun a new chapter with Rob Edwards. From what we talked about last time, Denno, do you feel that Wolves have perhaps made the obvious appointment?
It's probably the obvious appointment now, whenever you look back on it, but obviously they went to go down the route of the Gary O'Neill scenario initially. Which would have been, for me, would have been a disaster because the fans and the relationship with the owners and all of them at this moment in time is at a very low ebb. So to go down that route to a young lad who's only just left the club as manager would have been, I think, a bit of a disaster. But it's a big step for Rob Edwards. You know, professionally, it's a massive step leaving Middlesbrough just to come to Wolves and the scenario that Wolves are in. But the one thing that has pleased me about the thing really is that he wants to be there. His heart seems to be ruling his head at the moment. So that's a good thing with regards to the Wolves fans and hopefully connecting with the Wolves fans. But also, you know, they got someone in pretty quickly as well. You know, they had to. They don't want to linger for 2-3 weeks, 4 weeks. Nobody coming in. You want to get someone in as quickly as possible and kick on again, or try to kick on again, because at this moment in time they're in a real mess. So it needs a lot of sorting out, and it'll be a massive job for him.
Yeah, Mutchy, to pick up on what Robbie was saying there, we almost had the unthinkable scenario of Gary O'Neill coming back to the club, which would possibly have been the most divisive and self-destructive managerial appointment any club's ever made. But thankfully that was averted, and Rob Edwards, someone who's played for the club, he's coached at various levels, he's even been interim manager on a couple of occasions. What do you make of that appointment, Mutchy?
I think it's a very tough appointment. Rob Edwards himself has obviously been a player. He's played over 100 games for the club. His heart's at the club. The timing for him to come in, I think, is very difficult. Saying that, if you said to him a couple of years ago, you're going to manage Wolves when you're 42 years of age, he'd be absolutely delighted, wouldn't he? Time now really is for the club itself. If you take the owners to one side for a minute, think about the management and the playing staff. They're the guys that really need supporting now, and everyone's really got to get behind Rob. It's a big gamble for himself because it's been well documented that he was doing very well at Middlesbrough. They could be passing ships on the sea, couldn't they, type thing. I think it's going to be very, very difficult to Wolves to stay up now, but let's hope Rob, with his staff, can get the lads riled up and start getting a bit of positivity around the club.
That's a really good point, Mutchy, because there is so much noise going on around with the ownership, with what happened under the previous manager. And I suppose all that really matters now going forward, this season at least, is, you know, what Rob Edwards can do in management and what he can do with the players on the pitch. West Ham are in a bit of a similar situation as well. Obviously, Nuno's had a lot of support from the West Ham fans since he's come in and replaced Graham Potter. But also every week, every home game, they're protesting against the ownership. There's marches going on outside the stadium and similar things like that. It could be a similar scenario, do you feel, Robbie, as this season goes on, that maybe backing is there for Rob Edwards and almost that supporters might have to disassociate Rob and the players and what's happening on the pitch with their concerns elsewhere?
I think it has to be that way, John, for the playing side and to get results. That's the way it has to be. Because if every game you go to and players are going out to try and play in an atmosphere that is just totally sort of toxic between the fans and the owners, then it's so much harder to play. You can't really relax and play and try to give your best. Yes, you can put a bit of effort in, but your enthusiasm and your concentration levels and everything that's going on around you just distracts from how you actually want to play. So it is a case of what Mutchy's just said. They have to get behind the players, have to get behind the management. You can still voice your opinions on owners and stuff like that with regards to doing your protests whenever. Whenever you've just mentioned Nuno there at West Ham, what's he done? He's gone in, tightened everything up. Defensively, they look more solid, and now they've got a couple of results, and the fans jump on the back of that right away as well. So Rob has to try and do that. They're conceding 3s and 4s nearly every week. You have to find a way to stop doing that, and that'll obviously be his first target. But it's difficult to change the atmosphere at this moment in time, playing wise and all. It's a difficult place to play, but they have to try and change the atmosphere in some way. And I think Rob coming in with the background that he has will help initially. So hopefully we'll get a few results off the back of that.
A cynic could say that this was an appointment designed maybe to look for unity off the pitch as much as anything on it. This football leadership team have gone out and realised that the heat's on, and certainly the heat is on the owners and the chairman, Jeff Sheehan. And if anything, they're looking for some sort of unity candidate. Would that fit to some degree, Mutchy?
I think the real truth is the Fosun Group actually have employed Rob Edwards. So Rob Edwards wants them to stay at the club and back his 3.5-year contract. Going back just to what we were talking about a second ago, was the family of Wolverhampton Wanderers, like everybody talks about families at every football club, is the players, the management and the supporters. They're the three ingredients that make the football club, whatever anybody says. So the talk about ownership and what they're doing and what they're not doing is not going to be helpful one bit. We have now got a crucial time from November now right through to May to page the oracle and try and stay in the league. Because you see many clubs like your Leicester Cities, your Stoke Cities and all these top clubs that have been in the Premier League and they go missing for years. And if you look back 5 years ago, we had a tremendous squad, and slowly but surely they've sold players and players and players. But you have to recognise sometimes that if Kuna's kept us up last season, people like Man United are going to come calling, and it's very difficult to stop players like that going. So they've got to be doing work in the background. If Rob Edwards has got a 3.5-year contract, that gives him ample opportunity to stamp his mark and his influence on the club. But what is absolutely critical for Wolves at the moment is that the supporters absolutely back the manager to the hilt and try and put the ownership to one side. What will happen in the future in January in the transfer market, whether they'll want to spend or not, who knows. It's imperative that they back the manager, try and help the players, encourage them, get the confidence back in the club, get smiles on faces on the terraces, because it's like anything. As you said, Nuno went at West Ham. First few games, absolutely atrocious. You thought it's the worst team you've ever seen. But the truth is, he starts to put his stamp on it. And the West Ham fans now are going, oh, we quite like Nuno because he's got this sort of calmness. He's got the reputation of organisation and winning games of football. And that's basically what Rob Edwards' remit is, really. I think it's vital that everybody at the club, on the playing side, the management side and the supporter side, stay together and keep that family together and hope that will help. Because if we went down, for argument's sake, we've got to come back straight away. Because if you don't come back straight away, it can be very difficult.
Mutchy, I'm going to throw one in here to see if you have any memory of this. It was 40-odd years ago. But when you first came to Wolves, entirely different scenario. But there was a similar disconnect between the supporters and the ownership. Now, this has been very different. Obviously, Fosun have invested money initially, and they've taken Wolves into Europe and taken them to newfound heights. So it's very, very different from what happened under the Batty brothers when the club went down and down and down. But you came in 85, and there was still about a year left of the Batties. Do you remember anything in that time? I mean, crowds weren't what they were. Crowds were probably at an all-time low as well. So, if anything, people had just walked away from the club rather than protest. But do you remember, was there any supporter protest?
I don't think there were particular protests at that time. I think that had already happened. I think they'd sort of lost heart completely. The supporters really thought they'd lost the club because there was no intention from the owners to do anything to try and move the club forward. The team was always going to stay as poor as it was while the ownership was going on. Not until the ownership changed did that help that improvement. And it's a slightly different scenario, I would say, in present day, where there's a lot of money. The Fotons themselves have invested money into the club without a shadow of a doubt. However, they've also been happy in recent times to claw a little bit back. But sometimes it's difficult because there's big money being offered for players, but they must be doing the work beyond that, where they've got people coming in, because I think, was it 6 players we signed and none of them have had a Premier League experience in any shape or form, and that's like putting a bunch of kids together, and not having no experience around them to a degree. So you've got to look at that and say the planning hasn't been very good from the owners for a few years, but that has to really be put aside. It really does, because it's only the players and the management that deal with the football side of it, right? And that's all really the fans are interested in. But when they've seen what's actually gone on with the players and the manager leaving and this, that and the other, and obviously they were talking about bringing the Gary back to the club again, and I look at it and go, it's just, how can you sack someone 11 months ago and all of a sudden you want to re-employ him again? Was he good or was he bad? So you wonder why they're making these decisions.
Or was he still being paid, Mutchy? That might be the issue.
Well, you've let it out in the bag, Rob, haven't you?
Well, but I bet you that in a way that probably comes into the line of thinking, Mutchy, as well. From a business point of view, that probably come into the line of thinking. And then whenever they got the reaction that they did, then all of a sudden they pull their horns back on it and they go down a different route then. But there just seems, and just to pick up on what you were saying there, Mutchy, it just seems to be lack of planning, as you said. Whenever they lose a couple of players, then yes, we need to replace those two, rather than planning on those players actually going, because everybody knew that Cunha was going. Aidan Nuri was always going to go at some point as well, much because he's a fantastic left wing back. Semedo as well, who's kind of messed about a little bit whenever it come to the end of his contract, but for me he was always going as well. So these people should have been replaced 6 months ago, you know what I mean? And there was no planning ahead with regards to what was going to be done. And the same with the manager. We're going to sack the manager tomorrow. Who we're going to get now? There's no planning with regards to the future moving forward much. It just seems to be, we want to stay at this level and see how it goes. But that isn't how it works in football.
People like Semedo who've left the club, we have to be grateful and fortunate for some great times over the last 5-6 years, and now we're in a bit of a difficult spot. Now it's the biggest time for everybody to be together, stay together. It's very difficult when bad things happen on the pitch and fans get frustrated. The planning of it has got to be far better than it's been. Wolves fans aren't stupid. They've recognised that 100%, haven't they? That, who you're bringing in because they're going. I mean, anyone could tell you that Ayanori and Cunha were on the way, and then Semedo left, which was very difficult. And you've got lots of lads who are all good footballers in their own right, but they haven't got that experience, and that leadership is a key with it, right? Because when you look at the side now, you don't see leadership anywhere. You do look out for the odd player, you think, he's not bad, and he's okay, he is, and thing. But leadership is the way that you control your mannerisms on the pitch. Come on, let's all get together and fight as a team, and etc. Because we were talking a few weeks ago regarding the Portuguese lads who used to go round to the houses and have meals together, and that's all part of the team spirit, whichever way you want to call it. There was a different team spirit years ago, but things have moved on, and you've got to get all them lads together, all off the same hymn sheet, all trying for each other, all trusting each other, and try and deflect a little bit from all perceived off-field problems which are obviously going on. And it's obvious that the Wolves fans see that, but they're not going to change that. So they've got to support the players.
We'll move on to specifically to Rob Edwards and the players in just a moment. But just one last point on that, on what is going on off of the pitch. And you talked about the plan in the summer. And in some respects, Jeff Shee is someone who's taken an incredible amount of heat. But really, the purse strings, they come from higher up. They come from Fossen, who work out of Shanghai. And also, I think, of the small amount of money spent, I think that's where perhaps this football leadership team that they've got, running the club in a sort of football strategy sense, probably needs to be called into question a little bit more. A massive thing was made in the summer of the restructure and how Vitor Pereira was going to be supported, and Domenico Tetti came in. There was a new head of recruitment in Matt Jackson, and everything was geared towards this football leadership team helping Wolves progress in the Premier League. It was almost described as a big reset. And here we are in November, and we're resetting again. Tetti's gone, Pereira's gone. You're just left wondering what this leadership team is all about and whether or not they should be perhaps a little bit more accountable than maybe they have been.
Well, Johnny, for me, when the manager obviously tried to set things in motion with regards to getting his team together in the summer, he seemed quite happy with it. Whenever it was done, they got a few players in, but then he said whenever he was moved on, that he should have left in the summer then. So for me, it's all contradiction of terms, really. You know what I mean? You're either happy with what's put in front of you and what the owners have done for you, or you're not. So obviously there's an issue there anyway, but there aren't. Well, listen, Mutchy was talking about leaders on the pitch. There doesn't seem to me to be any leaders on the pitch at this moment in time. They're not even sure who the captain is from on a weekly basis, and off the pitch, it's a similar thing. There's a few people who've been mentioned recently with regards to being in the structure of the club, and I've never heard of them before. So I don't know where these people are all coming from or what they're actually doing at the club. But it's all in a bit of a mess, Sonny. And as much as he says, they need to pull together on the footballing side. The players, managers, fans concentrate on the football side and try to get them out of the hole that they're in at the minute, because 2 points in 11 games, it's not looking good, is it?
It's not. I mean, let's move on then to the actual job in hand. 2 points from 11 games, as you've said. Rob's come in and had probably a full clear week now on the training ground, but he hasn't got his entire squad to work with. Players are away. It was great to see Jorgen Strand Larsen scoring a fantastic goal against Italy in Europe in the week. He hasn't managed that sort of strike for Wolves so far this season, but to score in the San Siro is pretty impressive, and hopefully he'll bring a bit of confidence back with him there. If you were to look at this Wolves team at the moment and say Rob Edwards, he probably has to go minimalist, doesn't he? He probably has to reduce everything down to bare basics. And if there were some basics that you said he needed to look at, what would they be?
It has to be looking at defensively to make them more solid, Johnny. As I said before, I mentioned earlier on that if you're conceding 3s and 4s, especially at home in games, with conceded 3 against Leeds, who you would think they came up from last season, they would be one of the sides sort of in fear of relegation. We conceded 3 against Burnley, similar thing. They score a last-minute goal. You've got your 4 against Chelsea in the cup. There's just, and you go away. Chelsea last week, 3. There's just too many goals being conceded, and Rob has to come in and try to put a defensive, more solid structure in what they're trying to do, and try to keep clean sheets. I wouldn't even listen. I'm not saying I wouldn't even work on the offensive side of things, because it's been pretty naive as well, really. But if you can keep 3-4 clean sheets in the next 5 or 6 games, then you'll end up getting 5, 6, 7 points, and then that's kicking your season into gear a little bit. But unless you're able to do that, and especially in your home games, then you have not got any chance in this division of avoiding losing games, because 2s and 3s, are Wolves going to score 2s and 3s to win games of football? No, at this moment in time they're not. So defensively solid. I'm not sure how Rob sets up with regards to the formation and all that he plays, but I know that he was always compact in what he did, and I've just seen a few quotes and papers and stuff like that in the media and stuff with regards to how hard he wants the players to work, and that has to be the bare minimum of what's expected of the players. Organisation, work hard for each other, and try to get ourselves out of this hole.
Yeah, I went to that Chelsea game. I took one of my boys along. We went undercover in the Chelsea end, which was probably just as well, bearing in mind.
I was there. I saw you.
Why have they got, Johnny? Have they got a roof at Chelsea's ground? Have they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, right.
No, do you remember the old shed end and all that? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was. Do you know what? It was quite the first 4, without ever looking threatening. Wolves sort of contained Chelsea for 45 minutes, but there was just this sense that if a goal went in, even just one goal, that was it, game over. Wolves were never going to get back in it, and obviously they started leaking 2 and 3, and after that, and to go back to your point, Denno, that needs shutting down, because even when Wolves just concede 1, it looks grim. So taking that as a prerequisite then, that we have to have the defence sorted, Mutchy, how much work is needed further forward? Because it's been such slim pickings for Jorgen Strand Larsen up front so far this season, albeit he has carried a bit of an injury. And Tolo Arakadori, the big Nigerian lad, he doesn't seem to trust him. Or the previous manager didn't trust him. Maybe Rob Edwards will.
I'd say none. Absolutely nothing about the forward play at this moment in time. What the manager has to do, in my opinion, he has to change the mindset of the players. He has to get them thinking with a bit more positivity. All the games that Robbie reeled off there were conceded goals left, right and centre. We've had long periods in games where we've not conceded a goal. And, of course, we're not scoring enough going forward. But we've got to get that solidity in the team, first and foremost, like Robbie's saying, which is the defensive side of it. But you've got to change the mindset to the players where they can start to believe in something that's actually happening, as opposed to, there are managers that say do this, do that, do the other, and players just don't agree with it or don't believe in it. So Rob's got to get them players to buy into what he says, right, in the respect where they feel that they're going to be encouraged by what they are doing as individuals, which becomes a collective thought, because psychologically they're not strong enough. Whatever their abilities are is a different thing. He's got to get them feeling good about themselves. He's got to get the mindset right. Once he does that, when you start lending information to the players, they'll start taking it in as opposed to having a closed mind. These lads are grown men. You've got to get them to feel good about themselves and feel good about the club and all them type of things. And that's a big ask and a big job. And Rob's got a big job in his hands, and he knows that more than anybody else. But you've got to get some spirit in the camp and get some belief in what you're trying to do, whatever that may be, as a starting point. Then, once that's sort of taken off a bit, then you can lend other things to him in an offensive situation where you say, right, come on, lads, we may be able to do this now from this position, which might help that. But put the cling film on the goal post and stop the goals going in first and foremost.
I think we need boards. I think much of the cling film won't be enough, mate.
What, plywood?
Whenever Pereira first came in, right, that's exactly what he did, what we're actually talking about here now. Gary O'Neill was there. They're conceding a goal a week from set pieces. The goals that were given away were horrendous. Pereira came in, sorted things out defensively, and they went on a run of 6 wins in 6 games, and that was mainly off the back of not conceding games or not conceding goals. So that's really where you need to get back to with this team, and Rob hopefully can head back towards that. But it's a big ask, and it'll take a bit of doing. It won't just happen in the first couple of weeks. It'll happen over a period of time. Hopefully it'll happen.
Picking up on what Andy said there, when you talk about mindset and getting this belief back and this confidence, what I was really concerned about was that these opening months had damaged some really good players, and none of them have really stepped up apart from Ladislav Krejci, who has been absolutely fantastic for Wolves. And my biggest fear over these last few weeks, that he was getting dragged down and he was losing the will and losing the spirit. He's always just looked like a top class elite footballer. But it's hard when you're in a team that's bottom of the league. It's hard when you're in a team that's got a couple of points all season to maintain that and maintain the levels he's shown early on. And I really hope that Rob Edwards' arrival can help him continue with the levels he's been at, and he isn't dragged down to sort of what's been around him, because it's been pretty grim for a new player like that to come in, look so great, then be surrounded by a team that's not performing.
He's seen both sides of the coin, Rob, hasn't he? He's been very successful with Luton and getting them into the Premier League. Then all of a sudden, the owners of the club think that they've got all these players that are going to keep them in the Premier League, and all of a sudden he becomes a bad manager and gets the sack. But in between that, he's actually losing games at Luton, and he's seen players' reactions of winning and seeing players' reactions when they're losing a lot, and it's a big drift from one to the other. But I think that'll stand him in good stead. Saying that, the job he's got, it's a mountain at the moment, but if he's a 3.5 year contract, and which, how long do these people last with 3.5 year contracts now and again? But if they want to do that because he's sort of classed as a homegrown lad because he's a Midlands lad and played for the club, and they say, well, here you go, here's the guy that might steady us down. It goes back to the same thing. He's got to be supported by everybody everywhere and help the players to regain confidence and give them understanding of where they might be going wrong and all these different things, and hopefully that'll a brighter camp always gets better results.
If we're being realistic about the situation, you could argue Rob has been appointed for what he could possibly do in the Championship next season. It's a slim possibility that Wolves will stay up this season. I don't think any team has ever stayed up in the Premier League era with such a poor record after the same amount of games. But what I think might be damaging is, say, for example, the run of results continues. Will it do any damage to him? And will his position later on in the season become untenable ahead of what perhaps he's been brought here to do?
I'm hoping not. But you're right, Sonny. It's all about results, isn't it? Now there will be a lift over the next month or so with regards to new manager coming in, and even the players will get a bit of a lift as well. And I know that's wrong saying whenever someone gets the sack or whatever, but some players obviously weren't seeing eye to eye with the manager. So the manager's moved on now. So all the players now will be going in. Next time they're going into work or whatever, the first time they go in under Rob, then they'll be getting the lift and hopefully, putting their best foot forward. But it does all come down to results. Hopefully over the next month or so, he does get a couple of results, steadies the ship a little bit, see a little bit better performances, and then try to move things forward. But you know what it's like in football, and what you do as well. If you go on a similar run to what it's been on now, and I'm not being negative about it, but the lads at this moment in time, don't look as if they're going to win a game of football really at this moment in time. So it's going to be difficult. So if you go on a run like it's on now and that run keeps going, then everybody takes a bit of stick then. So everybody wants change then again. So I'm hoping it doesn't come to that. But that's the risk that Rob has taken, hasn't it? You know what I mean? Because he knows he left a ship that was heading in the right direction, and he's heading into one which is in stormy waters. Is that what they say?
Yeah, no,
pretty
absolutely.
stormy. Yeah, pretty stormy waters at the minute, and it's going to be very, very difficult for him. But that's the professional choice that he's made, maybe through his heart. Let's hope he can turn it around, change the atmosphere of the place down, because we've been to recent games and stuff, and the atmosphere down there at this moment in time isn't good. So hopefully get a bit more positive attitude, and the atmosphere hopefully will change with it. But it should give the players initially a bit of a lift as well with a new manager coming in.
Let's project forward, and Wolves unfortunately have to go down. How many of them players are good enough to play for Wolves in the Championship? Because for me, there has to be a big change, and Rob Edwards is going to do his utmost to make that happen. He'll give it his best shot. I've no doubt of that. You look at some of the players that are playing at the moment, and have they got the heart for the Championship? When you get in that league and it's like blood and snot, and it's more about athletes and fighting as opposed to a little bit of a more ability that you get in the Premier League. Where they're all the strongest, the fittest, but they've got a little bit more class. You look at some of these lads and go, well, are you up for the fight in November in bloody, I was going to say Filbert Street then. Where did he play now?
You're going to say Stoke on a Tuesday night when
Filbert Street was a great away end. I used to love going there
Wasn't
as a
it?
fan.
Yeah.
Oh, top away end behind that great big fence and in the corner. I for what it's worth, I don't think Wolves are a top half Championship team at the moment. I think if you catapult Wolves into the Championship, the way they're playing, they wouldn't be in the top half.
I agree with you totally, Johnny.
Right, let's move on. We've got some Twitter questions which we've had in, so I'll just put these to you. We'll start off with Super Gran, who said, how much of a difference do you think Rob's love for Wolves and history with the club will make, say, compared to an unknown coach coming in from abroad? Do you think it will make a difference?
Well, I think we've covered most of that, Tony. But I think initially it'll lift the fans. Initially, it'll lift the atmosphere in the club. Players hopefully will understand where Rob has come from. He's played for the club. He understands the club, and he'll be making sure that the players understand what this club means to fans. So, for me, yes, it should make a difference initially, but then, as Mutchy said, getting the players on board to what he's trying to do, and getting results. And that's the only way that things can improve, really. So initially, yes, but then results and attitudes of players and performances changes everything.
Absolutely. Mutchy, one for you. Do you think João Gomez will leave in January? This is from Walter the Wanderer, who says, I love him. He's my favourite player, but with zero counter-attack and not enough quality for him to give the ball to ahead of him, the brutal truth is if you'd swapped him for Boubacar Traoré, we'd have been no worse off this season. It's an interesting point that. So João Gomez has certainly not been as effective this season as he was last season when he had Matheus Cunha, amongst others, on the pitch with him. Do you think he'll leave in January? He's one of the players that's probably earmarked for a high-profile departure at some stage.
Not a chance for me. I mean, he'd be very fortunate lad if someone comes in for him in January and says, "Yeah, you're a top lad and go and play us at this top club." He's got a lot more he has to show before someone, in my eyes, would come and do that. I've seen him play, and technically he's very good. If Wolves have plenty of possession, he can look a very good player. But there's more to it than that. You look at the top clubs and the top managers, right? They demand ability and work rate and all the other side of it, the moaning about players not tracking back and with star names and all this type of stuff. And I think it's slightly, I respect the question, it's slightly distasteful to say someone's going to leave Wolves in January because they've got so much of ability, right? Because like I know Larsson scored against Italy, and let's be honest, right? He hasn't got out of bed for Wolves this season, and I think he's been absolutely awful, and I think he's very lucky that he's even in the team. And I'm not trying to dig any player out. I'm just saying, well, what has he really done? I think if we're not harping on about the past, but if Steve Bull had scored 1 goal by November, right,
Very good, Mutchy. The idea of only getting a goal by November. I like that.
God almighty.
Well, listen, you talk about players getting in the team. We might not have a team coming up soon because Neil Morgan has asked, is the upcoming AFCON tournament, the African Cup of Nations, further proof of a chaotic transfer window at the club? And for context, and why he's asked that, is that the players off to AFCON are Marshall Munetsi with Zimbabwe, Tolo Arakadare with Nigeria, Jackson Chichua, the fullback, with Cameroon, Emmanuel Agbadu, the centre-half, with Ivory Coast, and another one with Zimbabwe who's not really been in the team and had fitness issues is Tawanda Chiruewa. The only really regular one of those at the moment is Marshall Munetsi, but Jackson Chichua and Emmanuel Agbadu have been getting game. But anyway, to Neil's point, it severely weakens the squad going into games in the Christmas period.
And how long a period of time is that then, Johnny? What's the period of time that might be?
Well, it would be similar to a World Cup in that if you're kicked out of the group stages, then you're back much quicker than you are if you go all the way to the final. But they will be going off early to meet up with the training camps. It's not quite as long as a World Cup in terms of that, but it's certainly up there with the Euros, and players are going to be away for a while. It is a good question because these players
it obviously does,
full in the knowledge that it was AFCON this year.
Yeah. Well, that's once again poor recruitment, really, isn't it? You know, if you know that this is coming up and you're buying players, you know, from those countries, and you know you're going to lose them for maybe a month off the season or whatever, and they're going to be part of 5 players that might be part of your 24-man squad. That's a lot to take out of a squad, especially a squad that's sort of struggling at the moment. So it's not very good planning on the part of the club, but there's quite a bit to go before that happens, Johnny. So if we could get a couple of wins before they go, then that might help the scenario and give other people chances, and then they can show what they can do. But and come January, if Wolves don't at least try to strengthen a little bit in January to try to repel what's going on at the moment, then I'd be very surprised as well. So not great planning with regards to losing those players, but there's a lot of football to be done before that comes around.
AFCON runs from the 21st of December, so that covers right through that busy Christmas period, all the way up to the 18th of January. There's obviously going to be FA Cup in there at some stage, but that's a fairly hectic time of the season.
5 years ago, we're bringing lads in from Portugal, and economically it worked well. Now, obviously, now they're going to African players because economics work well. Don't think that's the way to be running a team or a club, if you know what I mean. And that really sticks out for me. Where can you replace 6 players from when they go?
That's the thing. I mean, it's 5 players are going, and that's the thing that is hard because you can't replace them quite simply. I think like most clubs, they're constantly looking for an edge in recruitment, but the model that they seem to be working to at the moment is nowhere near the model they were working to when the Portuguese players, such as Diogo Jota and Ruben Neves and later João Moutinho came in. But there you go. Yeah, AFCON is one other worry for Rob Edwards going forward. Let's then look at the fixtures that we have now, because the next 5 fixtures, which take us up to the 13th of December, I'll reel them off. There's Crystal Palace at home this Saturday, and then the following weekend they're live on Sky on Sunday against Aston Villa, and then there's 2 more home games, a midweek one on the 3rd of December against Nottingham Forest, and then a Monday night game against Manchester United on the 8th of December, and then away at Arsenal on the 13th of December. So 3 home games, 2 away from home. You'd only really say Arsenal are an elite team at the moment, but all the others are well capable of turning Wolves over. Where do you see the next 5 going?
When do we play Liverpool, Johnny? Because that I think we should be getting 3 points out of that one, shouldn't we? 'Cause they're struggling. They're struggling a wee bit as well, aren't they? No, listen, I'm going to say something that everybody knows anyway, because the Premier League's, such a hard league to try and get wins out of. You look at Crystal Palace now, well, they've done over the last couple of seasons, even selling their better players, and they're still doing reasonably well this season. Villa are on a great run. United come up as well, who are supposed to be turning the corner and all that scenario in Arsenal. So whenever you look at the fixtures on a over a period of time, maybe the next 4 or 5, it doesn't look great to the fact where are you getting your results from. So really what you need to do, Johnny, is look at the next one. Rob Edwards looks at the next one, gets himself sorted out, gets to know the players a little bit, try to get a decent performance out of them at Crystal Palace, and then move on to the next game, because that's the only way you can look at it now. If you're looking too far ahead of yourself, you're not going to get any performances out of it, and you're going to be looking and saying, oh, we're not going to win money out of that. We might have 1 win in the next out of 15 games then, you know what I mean? So look at Crystal Palace Saturday and just move on. And as I say, hopefully get a decent performance, hopefully get a decent result, and then just move on to the next one.
Mutchy, final thoughts from you on that one, and what lies ahead immediately on Saturday?
If you look at any batch of games in any time in the season, you find me an easy one, right? There isn't one. You go away to Arsenal, and Arsenal are what they are at the moment, and you say, well, if you get a point from that game, you'd be absolutely delighted. But would you be shocked if you went to Forest and won or beat Villa? You wouldn't. It's about the team and their application and their improvement is the most important thing, because you don't even want to look at the fixtures, because even the top sides look at the fixtures and go, Christ, we've got a hard run the next 5 games, because they're all bloody hard games, aren't they? That's the real truth. So names are one thing. History's one thing. You're only playing against 11 men that are in front of you, no matter what they're called, right? So you've just got to take that approach every week. If you start worrying about who you're playing, you've got absolutely no chance. And when them group of games finish, I bet if you look at our next 5 games, right, I bet you'll go, Jesus, where are we getting points from them 5 games? But it's about Wolves themselves improving, doing the best to try and nick a point or 2 on the board, gain a bit of confidence, and get a bit of credibility back into themselves and the club. That's what's really important.
Absolutely. I think that's really well said, Mutchy. We've got a live show coming up, so let's, before we finish, just have a quick chat about that. We're doing a live podcast recording on Thursday, the 4th of December at the Cleveland Arms. Are you both looking forward to that?
Absolutely, Johnny, yeah. I think it's always good to go into any room with a few Wolves fans and have the crack with them, you know what I mean? And you're able to tell a few stories, meet people that you haven't seen for a while as well, and just be in the atmosphere of with the fans, really. And yeah, we've done a few things in the Cleveland Arms, so yeah, looking forward to the night, and hopefully it'll be a good night. Everyone will enjoy it.
It's the night after the Nottingham Forest game. I'm sure we'll have plenty of current Wolves to talk about as well.
Let's hope we get a win then, eh? But I think it'd be a great night, I must say, because when we all get together, we always have good nights. We're people's people, and we all like to be having the crack together, couple of drinks and whatever goes on, and hopefully it'll be a fantastic night.
Yeah, it should be. If you still want to come along, you can do. There are a few tickets left for that one. Cleveland Arms website. Or you can go to the Cleveland Arms itself. Tickets are available behind the bar, or just give the Cleveland Arms a call. So that's that coming up. After that, we've still got a few more podcasts on the way ahead of the Christmas period. But thanks again for listening to us. And also, I should say, if you want to get in touch with the show, we're on Instagram at Mutchy and Denno. If you want to email us, it's muchyanddenno@outlook.com. If you'd like to get involved in terms of coming on board as a sponsor, we'd love to hear from you as well. But Mutchy Denno, thanks very much for your time again.
Cheers, Johnny.
Thanks,
Speak
Johnny.
to you soon. Cheers, Nat.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.